Good afternoon and welcome to the May Ordinary Council meeting. Item 1, acknowledgement. We, Greater Shepparton City Council, acknowledge the Yorta peoples of the land which now comprises Greater Shepparton. We pay our respect to their tribal elders. We celebrate their continuing culture and we acknowledge the memory of their ancestors. Item 2, privacy notice. This public meeting is being streamed live via our Facebook page and made available for public access on our website along with the official minutes of this meeting. All care is taken to maintain your privacy. However, as a visitor in the public gallery, it is assumed that your consent is given in the event that your image is broadcast to the public. It is also assumed that your consent is given to the use and disclosure of any information that you share at the meeting, including personal or sensitive information, to any person who accesses those recordings or minutes, and we do welcome members in the gallery this afternoon as well. Item 3, governance principles. Council considers that the recommendations contained in this agenda gives effect to the overarching governance principles stated in section 9.2 of the Local Government Act 2020. These principles are as followed, and councillors, they're listed 1 to 9 on page 6 of the agenda. Item 4, apologies nil received. Item 5, declarations of conflict of interest. Councillors, do we have any conflicts this afternoon? No, very good. Item 6, confirmation of minutes. The previous meeting, are any of the minutes opposed? No, can I get a councillor move that, please?
So moved, Mayor Sarley.
Councillor Schubert. You just...
Yes, the recommendation that the minutes of the 28th of April 2026 council meeting as circulated be confirmed.
You can have a councillor second that motion, please. Councillors, all in favour? Motion carried. Item 7, public question time. I will now hand over to our CEO, Fiona Lagasse.
Thank you, Mayor Sarley. So the following public questions were submitted to Council by Rowan Farron Parnell in accordance with our governance rule, and we welcome Rowan in the gallery this afternoon. Question number 1. Residents have continued to vocalise their concerns to our committee. When can residents of Mooroopna and surrounds expect to have a dog park? And this is the response. An off-leash dog park was identified as a community need in the Mooroopna Town Plan and was later included in the Mooroopna Recreation Reserve Master Plan. The Master Plan identified the northern end of the former Mooroopna Harness Racing Club site as the preferred location. When planning began for the bike jump park, the dog park was included in early concept plans for the site. However, during community consultation, there were strong and differing views about where the dog park should be located. To allow the bike jump park project to move forward, the dog park was removed from the block plan so it could be considered separately. Within the master plan, the dog park is listed as a medium priority project based on input from user groups and user groups involved in developing the plan. Taking this prioritisation into account, along with mixed feedback received during the consultation, further work on the dog park has not progressed at this stage. The dog park will be considered as part of any future development of the site. This will include further community consultation and detailed design. Progress will depend on securing external funding. Second question, concerning the Mooroopna Recreation Reserve Master Plan, how many of the 18 developmental priorities have been completed? And this is the response. The Mooroopna Recreation Reserve Master Plan was adopted by Council in May 2022 and identified 17 development priorities. While not all projects have been delivered to date, ongoing planning is underway to advocate for design funding for the highest priority items over the coming years. The impacts of the October 22 floods have affected the sustainability and feasibility of several of these projects. Delivery of projects identified with any master plan may be subject to the availability of external funding, particularly large-scale infrastructure projects that involve new construction of full upgraded asset. As a result, it's not feasible to assign definitive timelines for completion for individual projects. Council prioritises projects across all sport and recreation master plans based on a range of criteria, including community benefit, risk and asset management considerations, maintenance requirements, strategic alignment and financial or economic outcomes. The remaining priorities identified in the Mooroopna Recreational Reserve Master Plan have been assessed alongside other competing master plans. Several of the high priority items have been included in the Council's 10-year capital works program. Thank you.
Thank you, Fiona. Item 8, deputations and petitions not received. Council's page 8, item 9.1, Nancy Vibrant Children's Centre Consolidation of Services. There is a recommendation. Can I have the council put that for
Happy to
petition, please?
Move. Not quite what's written there, but that council endorse the planned consolidation of services currently provided at the Nancy Vibert Children's Centre into other council-operated early childhood services by the end of 2027. 2, endorse commencement of all necessary planning, communication and transition processes to support families, staff and the broader community prior to consultation of services and closure of Nancy Vibert Children's Centre site.
Councillor Akers, can I have the councillor second that motion, please? Councillor Truffle?
Mayor Sally, I'll second that motion.
Thank you. Councillor Akers, would you like to speak to the motion?
Oh yes, we understand this is a challenging decision, and I'm sure we've got some concerned parents in the gallery this afternoon and that have made contact with most of the councillors. This is something that we thought perhaps as a council group, I think it's been a bit rushed, and this is why we've decided, I'm moving a resolution which says it should not close till the end of 2027. There are fundamental problems with the facility at Nancy Vibert Children's Centre as far as long-term early childhood care goes, regarding the building and maintenance, the fact that we haven't used the kitchen facilities there for 10 years, I guess for us is a clear message that there are issues there, and the size of the facility also for the long term creates significant issues as to what we would need to provide into the future. There are occupational health and safety issues which have been identified and need to be addressed, and I'm probably of the view we can hopefully get another 12 months out of the facility and give the community time to adjust. And we also understand that there are considerable parking issues at the facility with drop-off and collection. We understand that it's a unique facility, creates a type of care that suits many families in Greater Shepparton, and it's ideally located to the central business district. However, we are assured as a council that 150 metres away there is another facility that also offers long day care and is more than capable of providing this service that is currently provided at the Nancy Vibert Children's Centre, and the service that is provided there today could be picked up and offered out of Arthur Dickman in both the in regards to kindergarten services and long day care. And I mean, we understand the importance of long day care and working parents being able to access that, and it's certainly something that somebody that represents a rural ward where we struggle to be able to offer those long day services in small towns at an economical rate, that it is important to parents and has to be offered. We've been assured that the facility at Arthur Dickman going forward can provide the service that is currently provided at Nancy Vibert. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Akers. Councillor Truffle, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, Mayor Sally. Yeah, I'd like to just endorse what Councillor Akers has said, because it seemed to be a decision that had to be made pretty much now towards the end of this year as a closure. So by extending that for 12 months, hopefully we get some, you know, some suitable outcomes as far as transitioning with the younger students that are there. Some of those students will pass out of this period by then. We'll have some probably new students coming in. So hopefully, yeah, by coming in, they get the opportunity to sort of have siblings there at the same time. There'll be a crossover. Also, the staff transitioning into other facilities around that local area, being able to take on the extra numbers and hopefully make it a better period where they can actually get some things sorted out for the parents. So again, against the challenges of ongoing costs and regulatory requirements to upgrade the facility, which is out of our hands. So things that have to be done there. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Truffle. Are there any councillors that would like to speak against the motion? Councillor Spinks.
Thank you, and I want to start by saying I'd like to foreshadow a motion. I have an issue with the extended length of time that I'd like to rectify. So this may be unexpected by members of the audience today. I'm against this particular motion in front of us. I agree with in principle, I don't agree with the extension of time. And that is because I think it does a disservice to the families that we're trying, I know we're trying to do a great thing for the families, but I think we actually end up doing them a disservice by extending the period. And I'll explain why. So I support the closure of Nancy Vibert, the Nancy Vibert Childcare Centre, because it's reached a point, it isn't about money, it isn't about our willingness to invest in the centre. It's reached a point where it no longer is functional as a childcare centre for the long term moving forward, and we have to make long-term strategic decisions. Unfortunately, it was flagged for us to be having this discussion most likely at the start of next year, with looking at 2027 as the time it may happen. But because these faults are increasingly occurring and the requirements of a childcare centre are so rapidly changing, that it's been brought to our attention that Nancy Vibert has just fallen behind in where it needs to be and doesn't have the capacity to get up to where it needs to be moving forward. So we're having to make it. It does feel like it has come out of nowhere, but that is how the nature of these things work sometimes. It is in front of us and we need to make a decision. It is not without recognising that the choice of where we send our children to childcare is deeply personal, and we choose the centre that feels like the greatest fit for us. We recognise this, and this has been a part of great deliberation that has gone on in coming to this decision. But part of the reason it's proposed for the end of 2026 to be closed is so that we can move as best as possible, move all of the staff and children together across to the Arthur Dickman Centre, which allows the families to continue to have their CBD location, which would have been, I imagine, a part of the reason they chose Nancy Vibert. It allows them to stay as to the best as possible with the carers that have been supporting their children, which I know are become an extension of family. I understand how important that decision is, and allows us to combine the two centres into the Arthur Dickman Centre, which currently does not have capacity because it doesn't have the staff, but by moving the Nancy Vibert staff across, can expand its capacity to make room for these children to move across. So by extending it to 2027, it means the staff can't move across until that following year, when families are going to be faced with the decision of what to do with their children, while Arthur Dickman doesn't have the space for them to be able to possibly move into, and it may send them out of the CBD. So I understand why this is being proposed, to extend it so that we give families more time to feel that they are being supported in this change that is about to happen. And I think that is very noble, and I totally understand where it's coming from, but I think in practice, it removes that opportunity for them to all move together simultaneously across and have that transition happen as one centre, so that while it's still going to be, I understand, a big change in their lives and their children's lives, it will be something that has a familiar face on the other side of it and has something that feels familiar even if the building is different. So I think that there is good reason for it to be the end of 2026. And that is what I am foreshadowing, that we go with the original proposed motion of the closure to be by the end of 2026. So I would request to my fellow councillors, do not support the 2027 motion in front of us, but vote against that and wait for the 2026 to come into play to support that. All in all, I support the closure, though I understand the angst it causes, and we absolutely have been assured and will do all that we can to make sure that staff provide a supportive environment for that transition to move across. But this is the reality of a building that once upon a time was fit for purpose and was, feasible as a childcare centre, but unfortunately with just the changing requirements and demands of a childcare centre and kindergarten, no longer meets that moving into the future. I am sorry that we have to make this difficult decision, but I support the decision.
Thank you, Councillor Spinks. Any councillors like to speak for the motion? Any
Yes, I will, thank you, Mayor Sally. Look, and I take into consideration the points made by councillor Akers, councillor Trelfall and councillor Spinks, but this, in my opinion, has come as a little bit of a rush for that, and where the outpouring of emails and correspondence we've had from concerned parents is enough to trigger, in my mind, we need to delay this decision. I'm in absolute support of councillor Akers' motion.
Thank you, councillor Schubert. Are there any councillors that would like to speak against the motion? Councillor Wickham.
Thanks, Mayor Sarley. As councillor Spinks pointed out, this is a rapidly changing area within the community, and it's certainly noted that the organisation and the councillors are committed to council being in this space and providing quality care to children in the Shepparton area. Regulations have also changed and forced their hand, and that's really hard, obviously. We have some amazing staff within the community and within council, obviously, have provided this information to us, and I think they've grappled really difficultly with it and taken their time about what is the best outcome for our children. And I do feel very comfortable knowing that their information is accurate and in the community's best interest. They've really gone above and beyond to provide us with as much information as we can to make this decision, and clearly going with the 2026 deadline does give the community the best outcome in regards to increasing places and care within the council's childcare and kinder service, and that's been made very clearly to us. So it's certainly something that we as councillors, and I suppose the council also, are really wanting to have that communication and dialogue with the community to get the best outcomes, and do it in a way that's respectful for the children involved. Obviously it can be really stressful and emotional for families planning, but I think if we all sit and work together, you can know that the council staff and other community leaders around childcare are doing everything that they can in the best interest of children. And yes, if it happened all in 2026, it may actually create a clearer pathway forward for the council to provide a better service, even though obviously we can delay it and throw money at something that's not going to be kept open. So it's difficult to wrestle with. I think it's a time for obviously parents to continue to ask questions and be assured that the staff within the early childhood space are doing everything they can to provide the best opportunities for education and care for our children in a space where obviously the private sector is also able to offer services. And I think moving forward, this is a really big wake-up call and opportunity with childcare services like Katandra West and Dookie as well, for us as a community to really come together and take the opportunity to see what may actually serve our community for the next 50 years. A lot of these kinders do obviously, and I pay tribute to Mrs Higgs in Kyabram who taught me, and Sue and the Turtle, and then my kids who went to kinder in Marupna, and Mrs Finlay played the piano, and Tony and Kerry looked after them. These are deep relationships that last forever and have a big, profound impact on kids for the rest of their educational lives. So we all care deeply, and we welcome the emails, and we welcome the opportunity to sit down and have a conversation and just really honestly understand that the staff providing these recommendations do it with the utmost respect and care for every child in the community. So I want to thank those staff that have really worked hard to try and create this opportunity for us to continue a top quality service in Shepparton.
Very good. Thank you, councillor Wickham. Any other councillor like to speak for the motion? Through the motion? Any councillor like to speak through the motion? Councillor Murphy.
Thank you, Mayor Sarley. Well, given all the challenges that have been mentioned there before, the ageing infrastructure, the outdoor space, the kitchen that's certainly not operative in the sense that it should be. I see that there's a number of challenges there, but there's two things that really stand out for me. One is the state of play of the facility, the condition, and really this is council's sole responsibility. Yes, it's geographically challenged in terms of the size of the place, but that is also the beauty of it as well for a lot of parents, the size of that it is, and it is in the very heart of the CBD for many working parents that are able to drop them off, the littlies off there for long daycare. And parking is a challenge, there's no question about that, including, you know, the short term for the drop-offs and the pickups. As I said, the kitchen's certainly not fit for purpose. I mean, I also grew up in a commission house for the first 12 years, so it's not all about bricks and mortar, but it's more about the people that brings that particular centre to life. The childcare educators that are there and that look after the littlies from early in the day to late in the day. And it does need significant investment and to be compliant going into the future based on today's standards. I absolutely agree that sort of needs it. But the second point is that those families need to be accommodated like for like, because if they're not supported in this particular way, then I wouldn't be supporting this particular motion. We've been given an undertaking that those negotiations will continue, and I think the additional year gives that transition, in my view, easier to look at it in more than 18 months' time, the closure, as opposed to really when enrolments are for next year in a lot of other places are already happening in six months' time, and it's out the door. That extra year provides that opportunity. For some, they'll be transitioning out of that and they'll be going on to school and so forth, and others will be coming in, but coming in knowing what's actually going ahead. So there'll be that cohort that are still there that need to be looked after and need to be accommodated. So to me, that's the crucial thing. I'll support this on the basis that those people, and I really do appreciate the ones that have contacted me, and I've had a phone call on the way in here just before from a dad who gave me his synopsis of what's happening with his children at that particular centre and what it means to he and his wife who are both working. So I understand the personal side of things. I understand the ramifications in terms of leaving this particular facility open. It would need an awful lot of money and investment if we were to continue it, and would it be then fit for purpose down the track? I mean, I would be all for putting money into it for the years to come, but to what extent if it can't be fit for purpose going into the future? But certainly I'll support this particular one if it's through to 2027, with the understanding that families will be accommodated and looked after.
Councillor Brook, any other councillors like to speak to the motion? Councillor Summer.
Thank you, Ms Sally. This is a very difficult decision, and I agree that the timing has been pretty sudden, and based on community response, it's clearly a large shock for the families. And I do appreciate that this motion with 12 months breathing space has the best intentions at hand. But council did want a decision as early as possible, and this way parents would have had time to consider next year's enrolments. And I do want to everybody who reached out with concerns and just reassure them that all their views have been considered and that feedback absolutely matters to this council, or we wouldn't be considering extending this out another 12 months. Look, either way, if 12 months or now, we're still closing a kindergarten, and that takes a lot for me to agree with, but in this case, it's very convincing. We know that regulations have tightened a lot since that facility was first built, and there are clear OHS risks: lack of outdoor space, small rooms, uneven ground surfaces, exposed tree roots, unstable sleepers, no functioning commercial kitchen, lack of parking, and general slip trip risks. In 24, 90 recommendations were made in relation to access and inclusion, including 75 safety risks, 10 compliant risks, and 5 best practice risks. And believe it or not, this does not make the building unsafe, or it would already be closed. And I do have faith that our staff are skilled enough to manage the next 12 months without disaster. Since 24, we've already invested over $190,000 towards structure that's non-compliant, and we'd need to spend a lot more than that to make it compliant. But even if we did fix all the issues, it would not solve the fact that this building has restricted enrolment capacity and can't expand to meet community need based on the new regulations. But there would have been good news if we'd done it now. It's a little more complicated if we do it 12 months into the future. Most people are aware that there is a staff shortage in childcare and that other centres have long waiting lists. This is due to those reforms like staff ratios per child, expanded 3-year-old kinder, increased access to free kinder, and now a 30-hour pre-prep program. And a large concern for parents seems to be the continuity of educators and large waiting lists at other sites, but closing Nancy Vibert would allow all those staff to be redeployed to surrounding council-run kindergartens that do have space to expand and take more children, just like what's been said. But if we wait 12 months and parents decide to transition earlier than 27, they will still experience those high waiting lists elsewhere because staff at Nancy Vibert won't be redeployed, they'll be exactly where they are. So it is a bit complicated. We're fortunate to live in a regional city. There are 9 other options within 500 metres of Nancy Vibert, and 2 of those are council services, including Arthur Dickman. 49% capacity for long daycare, 100% for 3-year-old kindergarten, and 79% for 4-year-old kindergarten. But once closed Nancy Vibert, the capacity would increase to accommodate all children. So you're likely to retain the same feel and vibe that is valued so highly by families there. So if you pick up Nancy Vibert, we can basically dunk it down into Arthur Dickman. But in order for council to continue delivering best practice quality of care in early learning, we do need to make hard decisions. We've been reassured again, we have to drill this down, we do have the capacity to take on every child displaced by this closure, and that would be in the following year or in the year after that, depending on how this motion goes. And that all depends on whether staff are happy to be redeployed, but we've got no reason to think they won't be. And if any family feels left behind, I urge them to contact myself for some support here. And I'm still at a loss on how I'm going to vote, whether it's now, rip the Band-Aid off, get on with it, or if it's in 12 months' time, which would be a little bit messier, but at least it gives people time to process the idea of going somewhere else.
Thank you, Councillor Summer. Any other councillors like to speak to the motion?
I'll speak against it if you don't mind, Mayor Sally. Just briefly, this decision's not about reducing our commitment to children and families. It's about ensuring council can continue to provide high-quality early years services in a sustainable and responsible way. By consolidating services from the Nancy Vibert Children's Centre into other council-operated centres, we can reduce duplication, make better use of our resources and focus investment on service delivery rather than maintaining multiple facilities. Importantly, families will continue to have access to council-run children's services with support and programs remaining available through other centres. This proposal strengthens the long-term viability of our early years services and allows council to respond more effectively to future challenges and community needs. While I acknowledge the community's connection to the centre, our responsibility is to make decisions that deliver the best outcomes for the greater number of families, both now and into the future. And I think this needs to happen at 26, not 27. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Eddy. I'll speak for the motion that changes it to 2027. So I've been very fortunate that my own 3 kids have gone through council facilities and early years education, being very fortunate to have access to council facilities. So I know how important it is for parents with young children to get access to good facilities, not dismissing what the private sector obviously provide for our children as well. So when I'm big on more the timing component of this, that I'm still fully personally committed to resolving an asset that can't meet the long-term standards that we're expecting an asset to deliver for us into the future. There's no question about that. I do have concerns with Nancy Vibert Children's Centre and obviously its ability to deliver good outcomes for us into the long term. I just get a little bit concerned that if we were having this conversation today, effectively having to make this decision right now to have this implemented for 2026 leaves me in a position that as a parent, I remember when we still weren't sure where our 3rd child was going to be accepted and I wanted some time. I remember specifically that if we weren't able to be accepted at that particular time, then I wanted the understanding of what that transition elsewhere could look like for us as a family. we are making it really clear that we are not moving away from our decision regarding the asset, being that if this motion is supported for 2027, that we are moving away from the Nancy Viber Children's Centre and effectively looking at a consolidation process. But what we are acknowledging is that the timeline that you've been given as parents and information that you've been given at this particular point doesn't put you in a position to really sit at home around the table and discuss it as a family to understand what is the best option for you moving forward. To delay this an extra 12 months and effectively flag that this is where our intention is, come the conclusion of 2027, that this is what we feel will look like in regards to the Nancy Vibert precinct, and effectively go through this process. We're taking you on that journey and making sure that you're fully aware of what our intention is. You can have those early conversations with our council officers and support team to understand what a transition can look like, whether you start that process now or you start it next year. So if we had had this conversation in Jan or Feb, it might have been a different outcome, because we effectively would be having those early discussions with parents and families now to lead into where we are now. We literally have to make this decision now, and it's a bit 11th hour, albeit I respect and understand the process. I'm not dismissing the work that's been undertaken, but the upkeep of the building and any potential risk hasn't happened overnight. We would have known probably about this late last year and early this year. Basically, we want to give good, clear direction to our communities that we want to see a consolidation of our assets. We've got an ageing one that's got some issues. We'll make sure that we can keep it above board and keep everything functional for all the right reasons. And we'll deal with this obviously next year, acknowledging that we're making it very clear to the community that our intention beyond 2027 is to not have Nancy Viber Children's Centre a part of our asset and delivery for children's childcare, long day care, and obviously kinder service. So I like the extra time, and I hope majority of councillors also support that. Right to reply, Councillor Akers.
Thanks, Mayor Sarley. I think you've probably summed it up reasonably well, and I think what's quite clear is that councillors have come to the position that there is probably not a long-term future for the Nancy Vibert Children's Centre at its current location, for the reasons on both sides of the argument today that have been portrayed. I think this is a decision about understanding the community and the families and giving them time. That's why I think we're looking to make the decision for 2027.
Thank you. Councillors, we'll go to the vote. All those in favour for the motion that's in front of us, which is the major change being for the 2027 timeline. All those in favour? Against? Motion carried. Councillors, we go to page 16 of the agenda, item 9.2, Community Asset Committees Annual Report 2024/2025. There is a recommendation. Can I have a councillor put that forward as a motion, please? Councillor Brophy.
Thank you, Mayor Sarley. I would like to put forward the following recommendation: that council note financial and performance statements of Council's 17 community asset committees for the 2024/2025 financial year as attached.
Councillor Brophy, can I have a councillor second that motion, please? Councillor Brophy, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor Sarley. For those that aren't aware of what a community asset committee is, it's got delegated powers and duties and functions of council to those committees under the Local Government Act. Greater Shepparton City Council currently has 17 of the community asset committees, and that have been delegated to manage specific council-owned assets, such as facilities, halls and recreation reserves. So it's basically local people making decisions for their local environments. In accordance with the instrument of delegation by the CEO, for each of those particular committees, they each are required to prepare a financial and performance statements to the CEO annually, and this is what's being presented here. Now, it does take some time to get all 17 on board so we can actually have them then come before council and to be ticked off. It is worth mentioning each of these particular committees because they do an incredible job. The Arcadia Recreation Reserve and Community Centre, the Bumbartha Recreation Reserve and Community Centre, Kennyambo Hall, Central Park Recreation Reserve and Community Centre, Kingupna Recreation Reserve and Community Centre, Durrangole Recreation Reserve and Community Centre, Dookie Memorial Hall, Dookie Recreation Reserve and Community Centre, Harston Hall, Caramomas Hall and Recreation Reserve, Katandra West Community Facilities, Kyalla District Hall, Lemnos Recreation Reserve and Community Centre, Murchison Community Centre, Tallygroupna Memorial Hall, Telegroup in the Recreation Reserve and Community Centre, and the Talamba Recreation Reserve and Community Centre as well. Thank you to all of the volunteers that put their hands up to be on those committees. It does take an awful lot of effort to go along, sometimes at some of those halls that haven't got air conditioning or they haven't got heating, to go along and have their meetings in those halls to discuss, you know, the particular asset and what they actually require. What I do like about those is that in the achievements that they've done, they've also listed what their future goals are. So we know what their aspirations are. So, for instance, we've spoken a lot about the Central Park Recreation Reserve and Community Centre and their future goals in the constructing of the change rooms there, the expanding of the men's shed and how that might look, and certainly the upgrading of the lighting out there as well. Whereas at Kyalla District Hall, you know, they want to complete the rendering out there, refurbish the wooden floorboards, which do look magnificent, and upgrade the kitchen and improve the car parking. So these are real functional things that each of these particular asset community want, and I'd like to present their reports here, and well done to them.
Councillor Brophy. Councillor Wickham, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thanks, Mayor Sali. Yeah, just reiterate what Councillor Brophy said, and obviously, clearly, this is a great way for the council to sort of assist communities to thrive and survive in Greater Shepparton. So, yeah, it's great to see these little communities bubbling away with volunteers and caring about their local areas.
Thank you, Councillor Wickham. Any councillor like to speak against the motion? Any councillor like to speak for the motion? Councillor Akers.
Thanks, Mayor Sali. It's probably appropriate, as 9 of the 17, or more than half of them, are in Pine Lodge Ward, that I should say thanks to our committee asset committees, particularly the 9 in the Pine Lodge Ward, and I thank all those individuals for putting their hand up to help council manage council assets. And I get reminded of that from many of them on a regular basis. But you know, it is a challenge to get volunteers to do it. We have recognised in this paper that we've tried to make the booking process easier. I think we've reduced it from 30 pages to 20 or something as far as it comes. No, it's not quite that bad, but we are working with the community to make their job easier. But look, thanks to those community members that give their time freely to help us manage our assets.
Thank you, Councillor Akers. Any councillors like to speak against the motion? For the motion? We'll go to vote. Councillor Truffle?
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Sali. Yeah, just what Councillor Akers says, because it is a real thing as far as people committing their time to all these committees. You don't realise how much voluntary time that actually goes into a lot of these things, even the small halls and things. None in my ward, just, yeah, but I do, it weighs heavy on
just be remember when it comes to the budget too. I've got 9 of them.
So, yeah, so, no, good, great, and a great report, as Brove said, Councillor Brove said, some results that they want to achieve and things like that. So, yeah, no, good report.
Yeah, good idea. Thanks, Councillor Truffle. Any councillors like to speak to the motion? No, we'll go to the vote. All those in favour? Motion carried over. Councillors, page 25, item 10.1, interest disclosure policy. There is a recommendation. Can I have a councillor put that forward as a motion, please? Mover, Councillor Akers.
That the council adopt the public interest disclosure policy as attached.
Councillor, second that, please. Councillor Griffith.
I'll second that motion, Mayor Sali.
Councillor Akers, would you like to speak to the motion?
This is just a rerun. This is not a great deal of changes to a policy that we've had on the books. Perhaps I should have grabbed 4 of the next things and put them all in one, but perhaps whoever's lining up to do the next resolution can get ready to put 3 into one. But certainly it's important that we have a public interest disclosure policy to make sure that the public are well aware of what's going on and the disclosures that need to be made. This policy clearly sets it out. There's no great changes to what's been in place for the past.
Thank you, Councillor Akers. Councillor Broker, would you like to speak to the motion?
I think it's been pretty much well covered by Councillor Akers. There's just to bear in mind that it is on a cyclic thing. A lot of these policies are, so they do come up for renewal. Any slight amendments are made to them. They need to be fed back through councillors to have a look and discuss at briefings if need be, and then put towards there to be able to be recycled again in 4 more years' time.
Very good. Thank you so much, Councillor Brophy. Any councillors like to speak against the motion? Any councillors like to speak for the motion? Not for the vote, all those in favour? Motion carried, unopposed. Councillors, page 27, item 10.2, public transparency policy. There is a recommendation. Can I have a councillor put that forward as a motion, please?
Can I move multiple, please?
I actually probably have a concern with that because there are some changes to the fraud. Well, which one did you want to? I'm assuming you want to do fraud and corruption.
10.2 or 27, 10.3 and 29, 10.4 and 31, and unless there's any objection, 10.5 on 34.
I have some concerns about that, but I'm happy for councillors to determine they are 4 separate items with some changes with a couple of those ones, and the audit and risk is probably a good one for councillors to talk about. But if you want to move them and speak about them all collectively, just as a group of councillors, I
do the three.
I do, yeah, I'm more comfortable with public transparency policy, fraud and corruption policy, those two, but the risk management framework, I'm happy for those 3. But yeah, not audit and risk.
Okay, so 10.
Just are the councillors happy with that? Yes. Yeah, we're happy, yeah.
Okay, 10.2 on 27, 10.3 on 29, 10.4 on 31. And yeah, I'll move all of those as one motion, please.
Okay. Can I have councillor second that motion, please? Councillor Wickham. Councillor Summer, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, thank you. I'm moving them at once because it's basically housekeeping. There's minimal changes. These are policies that are required under the Act, and I actually really like them. I've got a hard copy in front of me. Ironically, the first one is a transparency policy, and I'm lumping them all in together without speaking too broadly about it, so I hope others realise they still can speak to each item. But I'm quite comfortable. I've read through it. In fact, I think it's really clear and workable from my perspective, and I'm happy to move them.
Thank you. Councillor Wickham, would you like to speak to the motion? No. Any councillors like to speak against the motion? Any councillors like to speak for the motion? Councillor Spinks.
Only, I think that just a moment of recognition for the risk management framework item, just because behind the scenes, there's often a lot of chatter about risk and how as a council we decide, as a new council, how we decide what our risk management appetite is. So quite a lot of work goes in behind the scenes into forming it. I don't really have anything substantial to say about the completed document, but I want to recognise the time and effort that goes in behind the scenes to create it. It's something that in theory is unique to each council, and though in practice I'm not sure how unique it ends up, but it's about the way that we manage risk, and that is something that is slightly unique to each council and takes a lot of time for officers and also for councillor involvement. So just a moment of recognition.
Thank you, Councillor Spinks. Any councillors like to speak against the motion? Any councillors like to speak for the motion? No, we'll go to the vote. All those in favour? Motion carried, unopposed. Councillors, page 34, item 10.5, Audit and Risk Management Committee Charter. There is a recommendation. Can I have a councillor put that forward as a motion, please?
Move that.
Thank you.
Council adopt the Audit and Risk Management Committee Charter as attached.
Thank you. Can I have a councillor second that motion, please? Councillor Eddy, sorry. Yeah, Councillor Eddy. Yeah. Okay, Councillor Akers, would you like to speak to the motion?
Oh, thanks, Ms. Ali. Obviously, the Audit and Risk Committee need a charter. It's been reviewed. There is 5 changes to the charter, which are appropriate, and probably some of them are introduced as a result of online meetings now, and making sure that if you're present, you need to be visible and to the whole of the committee, which is appropriate, I believe. There's a slight change in that the minutes and agenda don't have to be approved by the Director of Corporate Services, and there's been a bit of a duplicated content around 4.7. The performance assessment was strengthened to include measures recommended by the committee charter, and the internal audit reporting was amended to include the ARMC endorsement of strategic internal audit plan, which is appropriate. I think that the Audit and Risk Committee do visualise and get to approve what the audit plan for the coming year should be.
Thank you, councillor Akers. Councillor Eadie, would you like to speak to the motion?
Just to say, it looks like some pretty sensible adjustments, so happy to support.
Very good. Any councillors like to speak against the motion? Any councillors like to speak for the motion? Go to the vote. All those in favour? Motion carried, unopposed. Page 36, item 10.6, contracts awarded under delegation April 26. There is a recommendation. Can I have a councillor put that forward as a motion, please? Councillor Brophy.
Thank you, Mayor Sally. I'd like to put forward that council note that no contracts have been awarded under delegation pursuant to the formal procurement process for the reporting period, and note that the request for tender advertised not yet awarded.
Thank you. Can I have a councillor second that motion, please? Councillor Summer. Councillor Brophy, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thanks, Mayor Sally. Not an awful lot to report, as you would expect at this time of the year. Obviously, the Heritage Advisory Services progressing to the delegate approval, the design and upgrade of the GB Highway, Numurkah Road with Welsford Street intersection there. That's progressing to delegate approval, and of course, parking enforcement services, questions of interest closed the other day. So in regards to that, there's really little surprise that we're at the end of the fiscal end of the project cycle, and what has been forecasted has either been done or underway, or some projects going over into the next financial year. Hence, this is why we were endorsing a budget a month earlier. So we've got that, basically that even transition, I think, in going through. And so we haven't got the bell curve in terms of things, you know, spiking at a certain time, that it's a bit more even and we can get contracts underway, but all good.
Good. Thank you, councillor Summer.
To agree with councillor Brophy that looking forward to once we pass the budget, this will end up 3 times as big, the list.
Good. Thank you, councillor Summer. Any councillors like to speak against the motion? Councillors like to speak for the motion? We'll go to the vote. All those in favour? Motion carried on. Page 38, item 10.7, Shepparton Art Museum funding agreement. There is a recommendation. Can I have a councillor put that forward as a motion, please? Councillor Schubert.
I'll do that, Mayor Sally, thank you. That the council authorise the Chief Executive Officer to sign a funding agreement with Shepparton Art Museum Limited for a term of 4 years, commencing from 1st of July 2026 at an amount of $2,495,000 per year.
Thank you, councillor Schubert. Can I have a councillor second that motion, please? Councillor Brophy.
I second that motion, Mayor Sally.
Thank you. Councillor Schubert, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, I would. Look, it's become a very much talked about subject, and I've had numerous phone calls, some agreeing and some are disagreeing, but at the end of the day, I've made some notes. Shepparton Art Museum is considered a major cultural and tourism asset for Greater Shepparton. It is considered to be an economic driver, and I agree with that. It is an economic driver for the region. Supporters say it boosts tourism, attracts visitors, supports local cafes, hotels and retail businesses, and strengthens Shepparton's profile as a regional arts destination. But some critics argue the museum has a high construction and ongoing operating costs that are heavily supported by council and taxpayers. However, economic studies have estimated that SAM has a positive economic impact in Shepparton of in excess of $20 million. That was in 2024 and 2025, within Greater Shepparton economy through tourism, visitation, jobs and local spending. The positive of SAM as I see them, tourism and economic activity. Earlier impact studies identified tourism growth and regional economic benefits linked to the museum. The museum has helped position Shepparton as a recognised regional arts destination, and the award-winning building and national significant ceramics and Indigenous collection have given the city very much a strategic outlook and many opportunities. Community and cultural benefits. SAM provides educational programs, school engagement, exhibitions, Indigenous art programs and community events, and studies have highlighted improved community engagement, social inclusion and opportunities for local artists. The museum has become a landmark for the city and contributed to the development and activation of the Shepparton Lake precinct. So I would say again, I believe it's an economic driver and I very much support this motion. Thank you, Mayor Sarli.
Thank you, councillor Schubert. Councillor Brophy.
Thank you, Mayor Sarli. As a way of background and some context, that Sam operated as a publicly owned company with governance arrangements in place since 2016. So we're a decade on from where we started. This structure ensured operational independence while maintaining accountability to council and to the community. A number of people would remember the old Sam, which was in part of this building in the middle there, which came into cost, if I look back before we moved to the new Sam, it would have been in around the vicinity of $1.5 to $1.8 million to operate per year in regards to having that running from this particular location to the new location, which is a brand new building, right as you're entering town. In 2020, council obviously transitioned Sam to an independent company structure with the appropriate governance and arrangements in place. Then again, council was supported Sam through a formal funding agreement to deliver day-to-day operations. The previous funding agreement commenced on the 1st of July 2020 and was in place for 5 years, 1 year extension, which now takes it up to the end of June next month, 2026. The funding provided in the first year of this agreement was $2 million, with an annual CPI increase applied on the 1st of July each year. So that had increased over the last 5 years into the 6th. Sam is responsible for managing, maintaining and exhibiting council's significant art collection, as alluded to by Councillor Schubert. The funding agreement ensures that the collection is properly cared for, accessible and continues to grow in value, both culturally and as a community asset. Sam Limited attracts valuable collections and art donations from those that are not prepared to give their donation to local government, but they are certainly to Sam Limited. And they can also access funding streams that is also not available to local government as well. With this in mind, the new agreement provides a 4-year funding commitment, and they do need to know that, because in terms of funding in regards to staffing, in regards to projects, in regards to the exhibitions that will be guaranteed, in regards to insurance, in regards to subleasing to the other stakeholders that are at SAM as well. And funding is for a fixed amount, and there's no escalation. So there's no CPI in this particular one. It's a flat rate, and it supports financially for them, but it's also certainty for council as well. Importantly, the funding is for operational purposes and cannot be used for the purchase of artworks without council approval. So we can't put money into one of the Picassos that are there with the funding that we're going to be given, unfortunately, and it would only pay for a tiny bit of the frame. The agreement strikes a good balance between supporting the key regional asset and ensuring an appropriate governance and financial oversights. SAM plays a crucial role, as Councillor Schubert in regards to mentioned, in regards to arts, culture and learning opportunities and investing locally. But it's also the world-class exhibitions that we've now got in place. And that couldn't have happened had we had it still here, had SAM not been built. We would not have had the Brett Whiteley exhibition from last year. We would not have Facing Modernity, Degas to Picasso, which is on show now, and the Archibalds, which are coming in September. That just would not have happened. Expectations are, we're going to get well over 20,000 visitors to the region in the next 6 months, just for those 2 exhibits alone. And it's good to know that for most of the public, it's, as public art gallery that it is, it's free of charge, other than these exhibitions, which is international blockbusters, which are paid for, as you would find if you went to Sydney or Ballarat, you would still have a fee there. In fact, we're probably cost effective in compared to a lot of those. To bring an exhibition like that, and that's why they need the funding, to bring exhibitions along, you do have to pay additional insurance, additional security, and a whole lot of arrangements into logistics in transport and getting it there. So I believe that the operation that they're conducting is very sound. We now have a councillor on board, the SAM Board Limited, and that will certainly strengthen the accountability as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brophy. Any councillors like to speak against the motion? Any councillors like to speak for the motion? Councillor Trelfall.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Sarli. Yeah, just the significance of the SAM in town as far as the latest addition to the art gallery down there. Picasso. So I went down there on the weekend and couldn't get a pass. I had a breakfast down there at Sam's. So it's obviously packed out over the weekend. My introduction to Picasso was Toy Story with Mr. Potato Head. Anyway, it got me to know the actual, the artist after that, after my journey through Gary Street. But now looking at a painting in town, so it's pretty good. So thank you.
Good work. Thanks, councillor Truffle. Any councillors like to speak against the motion? Any councillors like to speak for the motion? Councillor Spinks.
Thank you. Just make mention, this is our investment in the arts and culture of our community, and it's money well spent, I think. This, essentially, I'm rounding up, 2.5 mil is often spoken about as though it's a lot of money, and don't get me wrong, it is a lot of money. I'm never going to pretend 2.5 isn't. But I think that there's a lot of people who say it's so much money to spend on something that we don't care about, and I can't help but reflect that that's fair, but I probably feel the same way about sports. But I still absolutely support the amount of money that we pump into funding the many assets and the importance of that to many members of our community, and the opportunities that it gives for people of many different interests and things they are passionate about to have a space where they can be celebrated and be invested in. And Sam, for our local arts, for our local culture, is a huge beacon of opportunity for our local creatives. One of my favourite places to go when I go and visit Sam is to the local section, where you often see high schoolers with their art on display. And what an opportunity to have be a teenager with your art on display in a nationally recognised museum. That's such an incredible thing. And it's the difference that, as Councillor Brophy alluded to, the building next door, when our museum was just a council-owned museum next door, we still were pumping a bunch of money into it because it's what it costs to run a museum, to run an art museum. But it just didn't have the prestige. This level that Sam has now reached, now having a Picasso, what, a couple of Ks from us, I mean, that's just such an opportunity for our community. Many of whom may never see a Picasso. I don't think I've ever seen one, but now I'm going to go on the weekend and see one. I just think that it cannot be underestimated that while this seems like a lot of money, it is an investment into our arts, and it allows us to have this prestigious building, organisation, cultural opportunity right on our doorstep that in only 5 years suddenly has these incredible blockbusters in our own town. So I think it is absolutely money well spent. And if the state could just turn those lights on, that would be great. So, yeah.
So, thanks. Other councillors like to speak to the motion? Councillor Solomon.
Thank you. Funding agreement for Shepparton Art Gallery. It does pains me to consider an increase in funding for an art gallery during a cost of living crisis. And it is absolutely true, as Councillor Brophy said, that our original art gallery attached to this building also cost a pretty penny, as do most galleries. But I suspect this particular decision will not be popular with a lot of the locals. And some may remember I was a vocal opponent of SAM during its inception and during its delivery, and not that I don't like art, but I could not reconcile the cost to ratepayers while wearing a council hat. And looking back over the business case and how we got here, my views haven't really changed from there. A little bit, but not quite enough. When we agreed to a funding agreement in 2020, we were in the middle of COVID, and then we had floods. So SAM didn't have that opportunity to prove itself. And recently we have had the fortune of high-profile exhibitions, and that is so great, but I believe we've deviated uncomfortably far from the original SAM business case. It was a business case that cost $250,000 at the time, and instead of using it as a guiding beacon to success, far too many critical points have been overlooked or ignored, in my opinion. I mean, earliest example was that the business case costed the SAM building at $34.5 million with only a $10 million contribution from ratepayers, and we know it cost a lot more than that. At the February 2019 special meeting, we agreed to almost $50 million. And I walked out of that meeting after the decision and was quoted in the paper saying that Sam will be a financial noose around ratepayers' necks for as long as its useful life. So the irony of approving this funding agreement is not lost on me. And most importantly, and this is the crux of it, the original business case outlined a plan for financial sustainability. It described an $8 million investment account that was supposed to be raised within 2 to 3 years and underwrite operational expenses. And I felt so strongly about this critical point that I pointed it out on a prominent billboard during a 2016 election campaign, and I continue to maintain that ratepayers should not be funding a deficit that was clearly outlined from the start. But the saving grace is that Sam has been kicking many goals. We've got very exciting, high-profile exhibitions with more to come, and it's a very hard sell for our struggling community. But if the gallery succeeds, we all succeed. Tourism brings money, visitors prop up local business, who in turn spend more in shops, and it all flows down to all of us. And if Sam does have that capacity to make good on that business case and demonstrate economic success, now would be the time to step up and present some solid data, not just cup in hands. And if our economy has shifted too far away from the original business case, then Sam needs to explore a revised case, a more realistic case to move forward with, because they can't, it shouldn't be all up to council. Sponsorships, grants and donations must be sought to reduce dependence on the public purse. And if they've got a cool $8 million hanging around, I suggest it's invested immediately into a minimum 4% investment fund, as was originally decided. So ultimately at this point, I still will not pull the rug out of something that's finally gaining momentum. I won't be objecting to this funding agreement, but I do hope this sends a message so the next council gets a clear justification for continuing any funding agreement that might be increased or preferably decreased next term.
Thank you, Councillor Summer. Any other councillor like to speak to the motion? I'll speak in favour of the motion, but I just want to highlight a few things above and beyond what's already been said this afternoon. So there's only one person sitting around this table, as you may have just gathered, who was involved in the original decision regarding the Shepparton Art Museum. And the point being is that as councils, now and into the future, councils will inherit decisions and structures and funding arrangements and the purpose and business cases and all those things that make you obviously sit around the table and understand, okay, where do we want to go with this? So Councillor Summer was right. Sam was built in a very difficult time during COVID. It was not an appropriate time to launch an art gallery with a significant contribution from our community. So I actually sort of felt a bit sorry for it, to be honest. Like, it was ready to launch and we couldn't have a big launch event and get community in there and engaged and understand what this asset's going to do to our region. Not dismissing the fact that people may have already had a connection to the Shepparton Art Museum before it obviously relocated to where it is now. We worked very hard through that period of time to secure an unbelievable group that do some great work in the cafe there, elsewhere at Sam. They are a massive part of the success there. So our responsibility as a group of councillors is to make an asset and a decision that was made before our time successful for years to come. And what we've implemented, albeit last year that we only pushed it out for 1 year. So we only signed a 1 year commitment, and we got some flack about that. We signed a 1 year commitment, and basically what we said is we want to do things a little bit differently. We want a councillor to sit around the board of SAM. So we have Councillor Anthony Brophy, who is our representative on the SAM board. That gives greater oversight as the representatives we are on behalf of the greater Shepparton community. We spoke about, we want to see major exhibitions. So they have a great structure in place. They've got a strong chair of the board being Stephen Merriles. They've got a great leader of day-to-day business, and they've got an unbelievable artistic director now, Danny Lacey, who is on board. When you start to get the people involved, the stars start to align, and you now start to deliver these exhibitions that we are all hoping will continue into the future. SAM isn't an enabler. It brings people to our region. Also, they can connect and do things that perhaps would never have been the case if we didn't have the building. Now, that doesn't mean that we write a blank check. What we've made really, really clear in this is that there is no CPI increase. There is no rate cap increase. It is fixed. You make it work on the 2.495, and then we come back in 4 years and we assess what things look like from that perspective. This isn't an increase over a period of time. We want to create a culture and we are getting to our budget very, very soon, is that we want to create a culture on how to manage funds appropriately and not find out ways to overspend, but find out ways to be efficient with our money and work out the best way we can deliver outcomes, which is now why when I spoke there Friday night at the Shepparton Art Museum with the launch of the Picasso, or Facing Modernity, Degas to Picasso exhibition, there's a heap of other unbelievable international artists in there, but we have 2 Picassos in the Shepparton Art Museum right now, and I think they timed it extremely well for us to be making this decision here this afternoon. The point being is that if you back a group of people, you invest in a community asset, we are making this decision on behalf of the community, but it comes with checks and balances, and we don't take our eye off the ball in regards to that perspective. And I think that's what community need to be aware of, is that we have a responsibility to make the Shepparton Art Museum work. They are delivering a service on behalf of the council. And as Councillor Spink said, our team here internally at council deliver a number of things on behalf of the council that aren't related to the art space. So I've said it multiple times, we are the regional sporting capital of Australia, but right now with these type of investments and the exhibitions that we are getting, we will also be the regional arts capital of Australia. That is good, we can wear both hats, and this investment reaffirms our commitment to it, and it's proud to do it on behalf of the community. We do this on behalf of the community, but no, there are checks and balances. It is not a blank check, and there is accountability behind this, and I think that's what I'm really pleased about it, is that we are not just handing you $2.5 million to go and do as you please. There is great oversight. We want the big exhibitions. We want the thousands of visitors to our region. That's what our community expect. We represent our community, and that's what we're effectively putting on the table tonight for consideration. So if there's nothing else, councillors, we will go to the vote. Those in favour? Motion opposed. Councillor Summer. Page 40, 10.8, April 2026 financial report. There is a recommendation. Can I have a motion, please? Councillor Akers.
The council note the April 26 financial report is attached.
Thank you. Can I have a councillor second that motion, please? Councillor Wickham.
Thanks, Mayor Sarley. Yes, well, finances for April basically on track, which is good news, although there's plenty of swings and roundabouts, but at the end of the day, we're still coming in close to where we hope we would be. Year-to-date operating budget performance is on track, a surplus of 17.1 million at the moment. This is 3.2 million lower than the year-to-date adopted budget, due mostly to the timing of some recurrent capital grants income and an increase in depreciation due to asset revaluations in 24-25. And I guess we need to be aware that we've also recently had a re-evaluation, and so down the track there'll be a larger number hitting us again for depreciation, because I think our assets have gone from nearly $2 billion to $2.6 billion as a result of the last or most recent asset revaluation. So that will have an impact on our depreciation going forward. Council's full projected year operating result is a surplus of 1.6 million. This is 2.4 million less than the adopted budget. The movement compared to the budget is mostly due to increases in material and services, and again that depreciation. It's partly been offset by some increased or additional insurance settlements from the 22 floods. Capital Works expenditure is at 46.6 million, which is lower than the year-to-date adopted budget due to timing of project delivery, and the full year forecast Capital Works expenditure is at 72 million. This is again 5.6 million higher than the adopted budget, but in line with the Q3 review. So we've got a bit to spend in the last few months, but they assure us we're on track.
Good, thank you, Councillor Akers. Councillor Wickham, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thanks, Mayor Sarley. Yes, this is a beautiful set of numbers, delivered a month early, so well done, Council.
Very good. Councillor Wickham. Any councillors like to speak against the motion? Any councillors like to speak for the motion? We'll go to the vote. All those in favour? Motion carried on the preference. Councillors, page 43, item 10.9, 2026/2027 budget adoption. There is a recommendation. Can I have a councillor put that forward?
Happy to do that.
Councillor Akers.
Council adopts the 26-27 budget as attached. 2, adopts the fees and charges schedule as set out in Appendix A of the budget, and authorises the CEO and or their delegates to approve changes to service prices and programs throughout the year where appropriate.
Thank Can I have Councillor second that motion, please? Councillor
That motion, Mayor Sally.
Councillor Akers, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thanks, Mayor Sally, and I'd like to speak to probably the budgets itself and recognise that fees and charges are there, and most of them have gone up, surprisingly, but not much more than inflation. But look, we've changed the budget process and have brought it forward a month, and we think that's in line with good governance, allowing probably contractors and contracts to be ready to go in July, not just being approved on the 1st of July, so that we've got a better chance of achieving the outcomes that we're looking for in the financial year. We're looking for a surplus of $3.68 million this year, and that probably does include a few land sales, but we're still looking at a better than a $500,000 surplus if you take those projected land sales out of it, which is a good result, and fits in line with what this council wants to do, is make sure that we're delivering a sustainable budget. We've got an income projected of about 162.2 million, and rates and charges make up about 65% of that income, and grants make up about 19% of it, and that's where most of our income is coming from. We've got an expense for the coming year projected of $161.8 million. So that's how much Greater Shepparton City Council is projecting to put back mainly into our local community, and that's something that we need to be cognisant of, and you know, one of the bigger partners in the Greater Shepparton economy. We've got a capital expense program projected to be a bit over 55 million, which is a bit less than this year's, but there was a bit more carry forward into this year's budget, but a $55.2 million capital budget. And certainly a large portion of that comes out of council cash flow this year. Of that capital expense, $32 million is in renewals and $12.9 million is in what we're calling new assets or new buildings, and $8.8 million in upgrades. The budget's certainly influenced by our rate cap, which is placed on us by the state government every year of 2.75%. We've taken account of inflation, what's happening with fuel, and increased construction costs is certainly bearing on our minds, and also the community's expectation for us going forward. The budget invests in sports and recreation facilities. It invests in inclusion, culture, heritage, environment and sustainability. We're spending about $15 million on roads, $2 million on footpaths, over $500,000 in parks, and $700,000 in renewals of recreation facilities. There's a couple of little pet projects, I suppose, that are out there. Central Park, we've been talking about that. It's already had a mention today, but the detailed design is in this budget for the upgrade or the redo of the change rooms out there at Central Park. Deakin Reserve, change rooms upgrade, and looking at what's coming next, the councillors around this table did step up and decide we needed to invest in heritage, and it was the councillors' decision that we needed to put some money into the cottage at the museum here in Welsford Street, and that's in the budget, and also the Victoria Park Lake signage. So we've certainly cognizant of the needs to spend money on some of our heritage assets. This budget builds on the momentum that is driving Greater Shepparton forward. It invests in infrastructure, it supports families, it strengthens our financial position, and it prepares Greater Shepparton for the future. It maintains a strong financial position and delivers over 120 services to the residents of Greater Shepparton.
Very good. Thank you, Councillor Akers. Councillor Brophy, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Sally. Well, we brought forward the budget by a month, and that's really a significant thing, because over the period of time we always put through the budget in June going into the next financial year. By bringing it forward by a month, it allows for contracts to be starting to be drawn up and we get ahead of the game. As I said, instead of the bell curve, where by the time all of that information goes out and you get the contracts in place and then you know, shovels in the ground, it all happens at one point in time in the year, and then you come back and you've got no money left, or you're finishing off your project. So this, by putting it forward by a month, it certainly helps that to streamline that in regards to that. But the budget is a point in time. It is an assessment of where we're tracking. So we pick out being the 30th of June, and that's where it is. But it's a calculated forecast of distribution of the income that we've raised against the competing and ever increasing expenses that we also incur. This year's budget is a fiscal forecast. There will be adjustments that will be made throughout the year. They'll be provided by quarterly updates that we get, but also we do adds and subtracts throughout the year with monthly reports as well. We've also got the bureaucrats who come in and have a look at our auditing, and we've also got the risk and audit committee as well that drove through everything that we've got there. So it's pretty tight. When you do a budget, everything's assessed to the absolute, down to the cent. To where we've been and to where we're now going to is a credit to our CEO, to the directors, for whom have been asked for efficiencies within their directorate, and also to the teams that sit alongside each of the directorships. And above all, our finance department, who keep us not only updated, but are there at a moment's call if we need to know any information, and they do explain it in layman's terms very much. Rate cap of 2.75%, well, it's well below what inflation, CPI increases are. So council has to wear materials and services increases that are above what we want to expect, and we can't recoup that necessarily in income. So 2.75, that's where the rate cap is. If it's more expensive than that on the increase over the year, then we have to wear that. We still have to deliver the services, and we deliver them to our customers, which are our ratepayers. We deliver them to our shareholders, which are the same, our ratepayers. And to whom have elected us, yep, the ratepayers. Our community, that's who we represent. We have and will continue to be fiscally responsible in carrying out our fiduciary duty. And I'd just like to make note that I'd like to pick up, a gentleman asked me on the weekend about parking. Is parking going up? And I said, no, it's going to remain, hopefully, if this budget's passed, at $1.50 per hour. But of course, there is off-street parking, which is free of charge. Time, but free of charge. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brophy. Any councillors like to speak against the motion? Any councillors like to speak for the motion? Councillor Summer.
Thanks. I just want to thank the staff and especially the CEO. It feels like councils have done a ton of work, so I can't imagine how much work the staff and yourself must have done. Incredible. There are so many nuts and bolts when it comes to budgets. Even after this long, I still struggle to get my head around it. And to talk to 9 laymen and try to understand, like try to explain in terms that we understand, and you did it so well. So I just want to say thank you, because I couldn't have more confidence in this budget, and I'm really looking forward to delivering.
Hold on.
Oh, and surplus.
Councillors like to speak against the motion? Any councillors like to speak for the motion? Councillor Truffle.
Yeah, great to hear. Thanks, Jeff, for the seems like a monthly commentary on the financial situation. But again, as Councillor Summers says, you know, the staff here, you mentioned budgets, and people probably roll their eyes, and the general purpose person out there in the community probably would be alarmed if we were in the red. But while we're in the black and we're going, well, it's tight budget, is they're not particularly interested in council and all that type of thing. Although we're in the black and we're doing really good. So a lot of that credit comes back to, you know, reporting efficiencies and the staff behind the scenes who do all that to get it to us as councillors and get that across the board. So, no, really good, thank you.
Right. Any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Just obviously a lot has already been said around the budget, but it'd be remiss of me to not thank our CEO and executive team for the work that they've undertaken. And there were a couple of the finance team in here. I know a lot of people behind the scenes do a lot of work. So the only way you can deliver a budget that has a surplus, and albeit we didn't include the land, the buildings that we wanted to have. We basically said, no, we're not having that. We want a true operating surplus. And credit to the organisation, Fiona, you went away and you came back to us and you've delivered one, which, keep in mind, we were supposed to be in a deficit at this particular time. So we've effectively set out to do as we said, which was we are going to deliver a surplus, and it's a lot more than what we expected. And as Councillor Trafall mentioned, that we have to be understanding of where things are financially. Council are not immune to anything that we all experience on a day-to-day basis. We're not immune from high energy costs, we're not immune from high fuel pricing, we're not immune from the day-to-day costs of living, and at council we have to absorb that and find ways to still deliver the 120 services, still deliver over $50 million worth of capital projects, and still deliver a surplus. But the reason why we can do that is because as an organisation and as a group of councillors, there are not many councils around the state that can sit like this as a group of councillors with our executive and work collaboratively to deliver a budget on behalf of the community that delivers outcomes that are stated within the current budget. That's the most important thing that community need to be aware of, is that you cannot have hard discussions and make hard decisions to work through efficiencies to deliver a surplus budget if we are not collaboratively working together, and that goes with councillors and executive. We are not against each other, we have a vision, and we're all working towards that, albeit that we don't always get our little projects up, right? And there are a number of great projects that have been put forward by the community. So I think the community that take the time to make submissions, the in writing one, then come and front us as councillors and do the verbal in-person submissions, that takes a lot of time out of their day, takes a lot of courage to come in and have that conversation, but we want you to keep doing that. We want the community to keep putting in budget submissions and coming in and speaking to us, because it's like the old saying, you don't know what you don't know, and there's some projects that have been achieved by having those conversations. So while we continue to work collaboratively with each other, while we continue to be able to have those hard conversations, we'll continue to deliver surplus budgets and ones that can still achieve the outcomes that community expect us to do. The warm and fuzzy projects, and also the ones that require the day-to-day requirements, which is filling in potholes and fixing footpaths, which is a core responsibility, and also picking up your rubbish every week. Team effort, well done to everyone. It's a big budget, a very big budget, and I think Councillor Summer highlighted is that we don't really ever stop talking about it, but one thing that we are doing very differently for the first time here is endorsing the budget in May compared to usually doing it in June. That is another way of doing things more efficiently. I'm actually keen to see how that works for us. Does that actually make things better? This is a learning step for us. Rather than just keep doing the same thing, we're looking at doing things a little bit differently, and I really hope that it provides some positive outcomes in being able to get started on projects sooner rather than later, so we're not trying to rush and finish them at the back end of the financial year. So team effort, well done, good commitment, it's been a journey. Tonight is an important milestone to be able to tick this off and move forward, because it does give you that strategic direction and the dollars falling behind that. I hope community take the time to have a look through it. It's quite dense, but I think it's reasonable, and we've set out what we've achieved to do, which is most important. We've got our own internal measures that we judge ourselves against, and we've ticked some really important boxes, and we're halfway through our term and the work doesn't stop. We continue to build and look forward to what the next budget looks like ahead of us, which we will start that conversation the back end of this year, which is crazy to think. So good stuff, well done. If there's nothing else, we'll go to the vote. All those in favour? Motion carried on the first. Councillors, page 45, item 11.1, a Greater Shepparton Planning Scheme Amendment C241 GSHE. There is a recommendation. Can I have a councillor put that forward as a motion, please? Councillor Boardroom.
Thank you, Mayor Sally. I'd like to put forward a motion in regards to item 11.1, as opposed to the recommendation that is written in the agenda. I would like to put forward the recommendation, two recommendations that I have here. Would you like me to read both of them out or separately?
Yeah, read out the first recommendation. So we'll break it down, is what you're saying. You've got two, we're going to do them in two separate motions, is what you're saying?
Correct.
Two separate recommendations. So we'll do the first one first, and we'll deal with it as a individual motion before we move on to the next one as well. So what would you like to move?
I'd like to move that Council 1 note the 5 submissions were received in relation to Amendment C241 GSHE to the Greater Shepparton Planning Scheme as attached. 2, endorse the Council's recommended changes to the amendment, having considered their submission and panel report as attached for the property 116 Knight Street, Shepparton, 28 Sutherland Avenue, Shepparton, 241 Hickey Road, Katandra West. 3, adopt the amendment C241 GSHE to the Greater Shepparton Planning Scheme in accordance with Section 29 of the Planning and Environment Act 1987, with changes as reflected in the attached amendment documents, with the exclusion of the property 1125 Bells Road, Gowangardi. 4, submit the adopted amendment C241 GSHE with the exclusion of property 1125 Bells Road, Gowangardi, together with the prescribed information to the Minister for Planning for approval in accordance with the Section 31 of the Planning and Environment Act 1987.
Thank you, councillor Brooke. Can I have a councillor second that motion, please?
And a clarification, does that include Katandra Hall?
Yes.
No.
Katandra West.
The church?
Yeah, Katandra West.
240, the property at 241
Yes.
Hickey Road, which is the Catholic Church, formerly the Catholic Church.
Yeah. Can I have a councillor second that motion, please?
Yeah, I'll second.
Councillor Akers. Councillor Brophy, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, I will. And I'll take some notes, thank you. This amended resolution seeks to separate the properties currently grouped within the Amendment C241 GSHE and assess them on a different matter on individual merits, in particular one. The amendment supports progression of the two Shepparton heritage properties, being in Knight Street and also Sutherland Avenue, as well as the property in Katandra West, while removing the proposed heritage overlay to the Gowangardi property and removing, hopefully in the next one, the Section 173 agreement affecting 1125 Bells Road, Gowangardi. The position does not oppose heritage protection generally, rather it recognises that heritage overlays must remain fair, proportionate, practical, legally robust and capable of reasonable long-term management of that. I've inspected the properties myself and had a look at that, and I'm very comfortable with the three that, in this particular motion, go forward to the Minister for approval.
Thank you, councillor Brophy. Councillor Akers, would you like to speak to the motion?
Oh, well, thanks, Mayor Sarley, and personal view is this issue's taken a lot more time than I would have hoped it would do, but I would ask the Minister that they consider, don't just ask councils to agree with something without due consideration, and I think that's unfair, and that's what basically we've been asked to do. I will support this first motion, but I have no problem with Knight Street Shepparton or Sutherland Avenue Shepparton, but do have some issue with Hickey Road Katandra, but will support the motion but speak against that heritage listing at this point in time, because I think that's appropriate in that from what they've come to us. I mean, it does, this bill, and I think as a precedent, it does raise serious concerns around fairness and proportionality. The property was purchased less than 2 years ago without a heritage overlay applying on the site. When it was purchased from the Catholic Church. You know, the heritage overlay was initiated within 12 months of the Catholic Church selling the property. And that raises legitimate concerns to me regarding purchaser certainty and respective imposition of planning controls shortly after ownership has changed hands. Property owners should have reasonable confidence and clarity that regarding planning controls affecting land at the time of purchase. And you would have thought if the Catholic Church was selling something and you were buying it, you did your Section 32s, etc., you wouldn't expect within 12 months to be plonked with a heritage listing. Instead, we are now effectively seeking to retrospectively impose restrictions over here at the church, the gates at the front, which are very small, and landscaping elements of the property. We've moved the goalposts after purchase. I've spoken directly with the owner, met with them. They're certainly concerned about the fencing and security limitations, vegetation and palm tree safety concerns. He's already spent a few days in hospital as a result of the palm tree spikes, and the restrictions affecting practical management of the property. It's a very small property, and to actually put septic and water on it without having impact on some of these heritage things is very problematic. And importantly, I think it's also been suggested that more broadly in the local community, the Katandra community, they don't consider this as one of the municipality's highest priority heritage places. So heritage overlays should be reserved for places of clear and enduring significance where there is strong public interest in the case. And I'm not sure this one really meets the threshold, but in the interests of the fact that it's been through a process, we've had considerable discussion around here, I will support the motion.
Thank you, councillor Akers. Any councillors like to speak against the motion? Councillor Spinks.
Yes, thank you. And I'd like to foreshadow moving the original proposed recommendation if this is not to get up. Because as I did at the last meeting, and my position has not changed by anything that I've seen, heard or read, I do not think that we are heritage experts, and I do not think there is strategic justification to vote against any of these particular properties, or to go against the expert advice and the panel recommendations. But more specifically, I do not support the exclusion of the Bells Road property, and the reason, most importantly, is right here in the report. It says here, excerpt from the planning panel report, building condition, maintenance and financial impact cannot be considered when assessing whether to apply the heritage overlay. So it doesn't really matter what we think of the building. That's not how you consider heritage. Someone who is expert in this field has deemed that this property meets the heritage, and all of these properties meet the definition of heritage and so should be protected. And as someone who isn't, and as I stated at the previous meeting, as someone who doesn't feel very passionately about heritage, my thoughts are you either support them all or you don't support any of them. But as it is in front of us to support the protection of heritage, we should be supporting them all. So unless there is some very genuine justification that is outside of just personal feelings about individual buildings, I do not think there is any course to individually pick out items that should or should not be included, and so I cannot support this motion in front of us.
Good, thank you, councillor Spinks. Any councillors like to speak for the motion?
Yes, I would, Mayor Saley.
Councillor Summer, sorry.
Sorry. You might remember this from the very last meeting, and usually it would take 3 months for something that's voted down to come back to us, but in the essence of urgency of time, because the panel, I believe it's 60 days after a panel decision that the minister needs to see this, so we have to bring it back today. And I can understand councillor Akers' point about the frustration of having a heritage overlay applied to a property that you have just purchased and those goalposts moving systematically. But unfortunately, that's not something we have control over, and objecting on that point would probably inevitably be probably laughed at by the minister, because I'm sure they get this all the time. And if you want to have that battle, you have to have it at a much higher level to stop people from impeding on existing use rights of the property that you own. But unfortunately, it won't, probably is unlikely to apply to that one building. So I'm pleased that people support the three. In terms of not all, then none, I don't agree with that. Regardless of how we cut up the motion, the outcome is still the same. These three properties will become endorsed as potential heritage listing by the minister. If you vote against that, that means you do not think that those heritage properties should have formal heritage overlays. And that is the end of it, regardless of, on principle, whether you vote for it or not, which is beyond me. So yes, I completely support it. My reasons for supporting it haven't changed from the last meeting, and yeah, that's it.
Good on you. Thank you, councillor Summer. Any other councillors like to speak to the motion? Councillor Schubert.
Yes, look, I just think I should draw everybody's attention to the attachments and the letter from the owner, the current owner. And I'll just read some of these things out. I'm absolutely, totally in support of the motion by councillor Brophy. The structures in question were not maintained by the previous owners. and they have further degraded over time, we question why we, as the current owners,
Not this property.
pardon?
That one's in the next resolution.
Not this property.
To the,
Pardon?
that's not
Will
relevant.
be in the second.
It is Galgary, that's what it's saying.
That's not in this motion.
It's,
Yeah, you're still choosing to exclude Bells Road, so it is relevant to,
yeah, it is, absolutely.
it is relevant to.
You want to exclude Bells Road, that's the point I'm making. Okay? And
But we're not
without reading,
in that one yet, though.
pardon?
We're not determining the outcome of that one yet.
I believe they are.
That's the motion that's been split. We're separating it from those three to consider that on its
On
own.
the other side,
Yeah, but that makes it relevant.
Yeah.
That's okay, keep going.
Yeah. Without reading it all, these people have stated quite openly there's an OH&S risk. They're talking about their children at risk. That's the point I'm trying to get to. The point about it is we should be absolutely adhering to Councillor Brophy's motion, is the point I'm trying to get to. Yeah.
Any other councillor like to speak to the motion? I support the motion, obviously to deal with Knight Street, Sutherland Ave and Hickey Road. I think that's important. Information within the report gives good justification for that one. I do have some concerns with Gowangardi, and when we're obviously presented with that, and not to dismiss what Councillor Schubert's obviously mentioned as well, we'll deal with that one shortly, but I think the most important thing is that we get these three approved and on its journey to the minister to be ratified formally, and then we can determine what happens with Gowangardi. But I think it's important, coming out of last month's meeting, that we give some clarity as to what's happening with these particular properties, and this motion does that. Right, a reply, Councillor Brophy?
only to say thank you, Mayor Sally, that we didn't want to impede those other three properties, as you just explained there. That needed to move on and get to the minister so that the owners of that can make decisions.
Okay, thank you.
Point of order, Mayor Sally, does state in Councillor Brophy's motion exclusion of the property 1125 Bells Road. You know, I was supporting his motion.
Yeah, no, that's
out of line.
Yeah, no, that's fine. No, we'll go to the vote with that one there. So, no, there was just some confusion around because the Bells property has been dealt with separately as a separate motion. Clear with that. So, okay, if there's nothing else, councillors, we'll go to the vote. All those in favour? Against? Motion carried. Okay, Councillor Brophy, do you have another motion that you're?
Yes, I do, thank you. Still under 11.1 in the agenda, and that is that council not endorse the officer's recommendation and panel report in respect to the property 1125 Bells Road, Gowangardi. And 2, seek action from council to commence proceedings to consider removing section 173 of the Planning and Environment Act 1987 on the registered property of 1125 Bells Road, Gowangardi. 3, note the attachment with reference to the rationale of the exclusion of the aforementioned property.
Thank you, Councillor Brophy. Can I have a councillor second that motion, please? Thank you, Councillor Akers.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Sally. The current owners state that they purchased the property at auction on the 14th of October 2022, and we're aware that there perhaps were discussions regarding a potential heritage listing that were going to be pursued at some point in time. However, they state that they were not made aware of any of the section 173 agreement affecting the property, and only became aware of the agreement last week when it was brought to their attention through the council resolution process. Importantly, section 173 agreement was executed by the previous owners more than 2 months after the property had already been sold at auction and gone under the contract to the current owners. This raises legitimate concerns regarding the purchaser awareness, procedural fairness, transparency, and whether the current owners knowingly accepted these restrictions. The agreement itself also referenced disclosure obligations to future purchaser, the conditions of the building and safety concerns. Council's emergency order issued in December 2025 described the building as follows: 4 derelict buildings, in poor condition, unfit for occupancy or use, deteriorated structural members, timber, dislodged structural fixing, and termite damage throughout. The emergency order specifically cited danger to life arising out of the condition and the use of the building. The emergency order required owners to install and maintain a 1.8 metre high temporary safety fence and warning signs around the buildings due to the identified danger to life risks associated with the structures. This created a significant contradiction whereby the buildings are considered dangerous and unsafe through council's building enforcement processes, while the permanent heritage protections are simultaneously proposed over the same structures. Given the extent of the structural deterioration identified within the emergency order, legitimate questions arise regarding whether sufficient heritage integrity remains, whether practical long-term conservation is achievable, and whether permanent heritage overlay controls remain appropriate and in the public interest. Victorian government guidelines requiring there be something to be managed is particularly relevant in this circumstances. Heritage protection is intended to manage and conserve places of genuine and demonstrable significance. Where structures are subsequently deteriorated to the point that emergency safety fencing and warning signage are required, it is reasonable for council to carefully consider whether the proposed controls remain appropriate, practical, and in the broader public interest.
Thank you, councillor Brophy. Councillor Akers, would you like to speak to the motion?
I would, and I'll repeat a fair bit of what councillor Brophy says, but heritage matters, and we've had an interesting opening of a heritage facility in Greater Shepparton in the last couple of weeks in Days Mill out at Murchison. Facility owned by the state government, opened only once a year to anybody, and they've spent bugger all on it looking after it. That is a public-owned heritage place in Greater Shepparton, owned by the state, and they just look after it. We today approved the spending of some money on one of our prized heritage buildings at the museum. And to be honest, the councillors had to decide that we needed to step up and spend the money on it to keep it up to the standard it needs to be. That's two examples of public-owned heritage-listed buildings with some reluctance to keep them in the order that they need to be kept. So these decisions should not be made lightly, and they shouldn't be made lightly and just rubber stamped when we decide to put heritage listings on private people that don't prefer or would prefer not to have them. Heritage controls should be fair, proportionate and practical, and they should be legally sound. The independent panel's role is advisory only. Someone's still got to tick it off, and yes, we have to tick it off. We've got a vote in this. If the minister didn't want our vote, they shouldn't have come and asked us for it. So we do count in the process. We're not just here to rubber stamp, and I'm quite sure none of us think we were just elected to be rubber stamps. Our role's to apply judgment, to strike balance between heritage value, fairness, safety, practicality and public confidence in the council processes. And in the case of Gowan Gardy here, I don't believe the balance is being achieved. I mean, as Broke said, the landowners purchased the property we were told that the landowners purchased the property with the agreement in place. We now understand that not to be true. The property was sold on the 14th of October 2022, and this 173 was put in place on the 22nd of December 2022. A nice Christmas present. But, believe it or not, the family that had purchased the property were none the wiser of it and never informed about it until they were made aware of what was going on regarding this council meeting. So, important things that, as far as due consideration goes and people being aware of what's going on their property. And it's important that, you know, we want people investing in our community with confidence that they can do what they intend to do with properties. As both then indicated, again this year is the actions of this council directly. On the 22nd of December 25, happy Christmas, 3 days before Christmas, council issued an emergency order over the property requiring the owners to install fencing 1.8 metres high with warning signage and for it to be completed by the 12th of January. Well, I have a bit to do with purchasing temporary fencing, and it's pretty hard to buy between Christmas Day and about the second week of January, so it's quite disappointing that we made those sort of conditions on it. But as Brove said, what do they describe them as? 4 derelict buildings in poor condition, unfit for occupation or use, rotten timber, structural deterioration, dislodged fittings, termite damage, and here's the beauty, danger to life arising from the condition or use of the building. Danger to life. We're going to heritage list it. So what are we preserving here? If the buildings are so dangerous enough to require emergency fencing, warning signage, restricted public access, then it's entirely reasonable for council to question whether permanent heritage overlay controls remain appropriate. Planning Practice Note 1, issued by the Victorian Government, states, an appropriate test for a potential heritage place to pass in order to apply a heritage overlay is that there is something there to be managed. We've just described what's there to be managed. I'm not sure what we're managing. Council's own order identifies the buildings as derelict, structurally deteriorated, termite damaged and dangerous to life. That raises legitimate questions about whether sufficient heritage fabric, integrity and practical conservation value remains to justify permanent heritage overlay controls. And we must remember this is private property, not public land. Councillors, this comes down to balance, fairness and common sense. And in Gowan Gardy, we have unresolved issues around what is a 173. Owners who say they are unaware of the agreement, buildings declared dangerous to life, and serious questions about whether practical long-term conservation is even achievable. Heritage matters, and we as a council have recognised that in how we've spent our money and the direction we've given. But fairness matters too. And for these reasons, I'm supporting this amendment.
Thank you, Councillor Akers. Any councillors like to speak against the motion? Councillor Speaks.
Thank you. All of the reasons said in the previous item, but with the addition of this, we're essentially inserting ourselves into a real estate dispute. I query the sale was November, yes, November? October, sorry. The heritage overlay December, but settlement wasn't until the following June. So there's queries there of what knowledge was had or who should have provided it. Certainly sounds like a real estate thing. But more, as well as that, it certainly, I feel, is reasonable to assume that the ultimate decision of whether this item should be heritage listed will fall to the minister. So one way or the other, whatever's decided today doesn't really matter. It goes to the minister and they'll decide one way or the other whether it does meet the requirements to be heritage listed. But I think it would be reasonable to assume that the suggestion to remove the protection currently supporting that particular building, whatever its condition it is in, but by removing that would possibly lead it open to removing that building before any decision can be made by the minister, which feels like it's outside of our responsibility to decide. This isn't, as well, just finally, in the question of procedural fairness, it feels like we've gone to bat for one property owner, but I have to assume that the people who put in originally for the section 173 would have things to say about this, but that hasn't been a part of the conversation. So I just query this entire process. I think that it is not entirely fair and not entirely centred around the purpose of heritage, but most importantly, maintaining my original position. I don't think it has strategic justification, so not going to support it today.
Councillor Spinks. Any councillors like to speak for the motion? Councillor Summer.
Thanks. I wasn't, last meeting I actually voted to support a heritage overlay in that structure, but I guess danger to life got me thinking the other way around. And yes, it's absolutely true that if danger to life somehow doesn't impact on a heritage decision, then the minister...
Clarification, apologies, Councillor Summer. The danger to life, does that come from the emergency order that was issued or from the advice or the correspondence provided by the property owner?
No, the emergency order.
Okay, thank you, clarified, thank you.
Said by councillor.
Okay.
So having read the emergency order in full, it was quite shocking and it did sway my decision a lot. If the minister surprisingly comes back having read that, which may or may not, obviously I hope it's tabled within the motion if this motion passes for the minister to see. And I'm curious to see whether it does make an impact or not on the minister's decision. If not, that's okay. But in the meantime, looking at such a dilapidated structure, I think the best course of action if council really want to preserve this structure is to go in and take as many photos as possible, possibly 3D print out what it was, or take some samples and really try to preserve it, because it's going to fall down any day. While we're having this argument, it's probably going to hit the ground. It's that dilapidated. So I get it, but there are limits to what I will support. So as it stands now, I'm going to support the motion to not support the heritage overlay.
Good, thank you, Councillor Summer. Any other councillors like to speak to the motion?
Yes, I feel obligated to. Thank you, Mayor Sarley. Look, just listening to what Councillor Akers and Councillor Brophy have said, you know, and I hate using the word, but gee whiz, this is just stupidity, in my opinion, of the highest order. When you've got an unsafe structure, which is proven to be unsafe by regardless of who's looked at it, we're thwarting the activities of this property owner because the building is that unsafe, he doesn't want his cattle or his kids or anything near it, and yet we're still contemplating that we're going to authorise a heritage overlay. I just can't cop it. It just doesn't pass the pub test for me. I support Councillor Brophy's motion wholeheartedly, especially in this exercise.
Councillor Schubert, any other councillors like to speak to the motion?
Yeah,
Councillor Troppel.
thanks, Mayor Sarley. Yeah, I support Councillor Brophy's motion, listening to what Councillor Akers has said and so forth. It's not Stonehenge. I think if you give it a kick, you're more likely to break the building than break your toe. So I'll support the motion.
Thank you. Any other councillors like to speak to the motion?
Just quickly, Mayor Sarley, I'd take a fair bit of issue with the fact that someone can sell a property and then basically lumber a new owner with restrictions that I'm not aware of. So I will be supporting this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Eddy. I'll also be supporting it. Enough's been said around the table as for the reasons, but I just want some clarification, Councillor Brophy, the points that we need to, for justification,
Yes,
can you formally... Yeah. Do we need to...
Yes, it will be, before I move.
Yeah.
I will send that through now.
Yeah, so, so just verbalising that is all, or does he actually need to move to table them?
As part of the, before you go to the vote, you need to clarify that you want those notes included as part of this motion.
Yeah.
Which is point 3.
Happy with that? Yeah, Bro, we're happy with that?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, it's in its point.
Table the notes, recommendation. Okay, right, a reply, Councillor Bro.
Look, thank you. Above and beyond, heritage is very important. This is an area where we've let our heritage go. We've got some fantastic people that are our Heritage Committee, Advisory Committee. We are protecting heritage where it needs to be protected, but there is also a safety issue in regards to this. We are putting forward in the previous recommendation 3 properties with submissions and a panel report which we've endorsed and put that through to the Minister. There is one that we believe in general that is not just fair to go through, and with justification in providing the notes there, believe that that should not be part of the blocked group of properties that have been put forward.
Okay, thank you so much, Councillor Brophy. Councillors, if there's nothing else, we'll go to the vote. All those in favour? Against? Motion carried. Page 56, item 12, documents for signing and sealing, they'll receive. Page 57, April 2026, there is a recommendation. Can I have a councillor put that motion, please? They got a mover. Thanks.
I'll move that council receive both the summary of the councillors' community interactions and informal meeting of councillors.
Can I have a councillor second that motion, please? Councillor Wickham. Thank you. Councillor Spinks, would you like to speak to the motion?
It's a good month of community activities. It's great to be out there amongst things. The Anzac Day services were beautiful. I had the privilege of going to Murchison, and it was lovely. But yeah, just a moment to appreciate all the things that we've been up to for the month and all the things community has welcomed us at. And I'm sure councillor Brophy will elaborate in a minute.
Thank you, councillor. Speaking to councillor Wickham, I was hoping he wouldn't because we've got a
No, I'm pretty sure he still will.
seconder, but so there we go. Councillor Wickham, would you like to speak to the motion?
I'll just pass it over to councillor Brophy.
Okay, very good. Thank you, councillor Wickham. Are there any councillors like to speak against the motion? Any councillors like to speak for the motion? Councillor Brophy.
Oh, thank you, Mayor Saley, I thought you'd never ask. Look, just want to highlight a couple of events that were probably new to the area. One was being the Shepparton Rodeo, which was fantastic, and down at the Shepparton Showgrounds, literally thousands to...
Big hat, was it?
Sorry?
Big hat, was it?
Yeah.
That was really yeehaw, that was fantastic. A number of councillors went along to the Sri Lankan New Year celebration that was over at the Maribna Recreation Reserve, and of course the Kabaddi Mala as well, which took place. So lots of cultural festivals as well. But one significant one was Under the Stars, which was held with the Salvation Army, Jim Gow at the helm, in dealing with homelessness that's in the region. Yes, money was raised, and I think including an auction just recently of over $50,000 to go towards looking after those that are most vulnerable in our community. 79 young people sleep out in rough or without a home, and I'm talking about young people every night in Shepparton, every night. So if we can make awareness of that by sleeping a little bit rough, you know, it's not tough, overnight in sleeping bags. Some got the Taj Mahal, and some got, you know, just cardboard to sleep on. And I put my hat off to the runners that were running there as well. Not only people sleeping out, but a number of people, Vic Bovolino, Ralphie and that, and they ran all night. And they ran, I think, for something like 24 hours. So well done to those and all the other runners that were part of it. That's bringing community together. That's looking at an issue that we need to raise. So when we get invited to certain things, these are the sort of things we go along to. The BMX people that came up here, we had the presentations up there. How fantastic that was. They were super impressed with Councillor Trelfall and his little remarks to each medal winner that they got up on the dais. So they wanted to pass that on. And of course, as mentioned, the Anzac Day services had the good fortune of not only the dawn service, but down at Salamba. Fantastic month.
Thank you, councillor Brophy. Any other councillors like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor Saley. Look, as an ex-Vietnam vet, I'm just so pleased and proud that councillors make themselves so available. The highlight for me of the month was the Anzac Day services, and Fiona and I both attended the Tatura one, and it was just great to see so many councillors spread out amongst all the Anzac Day services that happened within the Great Shepparton City Council. So well done to each and every one of you that took the effort to attend the Anzac Day service. It was great.
Very good, thank you. Any other councillors like to speak to the motion? No, we'll go to the vote. All those in favour? All those in favour? Motion carried on opposed. Page 59, item 14, notice of motion amendment or rescission of received item 15, urgent business not included on the agenda. Is there any urgent business? No. Item 16, close of meeting. I will do it 4:58 p.m. Thank you.